needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. Now, there you were, with bits of love and devotion, deeply touching my emotion. Gonna stop. Thank you, baby. Said I'm gonna stop. All right. Thank you, baby. Come on now, people. Here we go now. How sweet it is to be loved by you. All right. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
All right. Welcome to the Duncan Showroom. I almost forgot where I was. My name is Bill Levity. I'm the birthday man, birthday boy today, sitting in once again for Longevity John, who is out getting his ducks in a row. It's a full-time job some days. And, of course, we've got Ted on the board, and our distant audience, Marcia, is here. This is my birthday, and I've been friends with Eugene for a long time. Hi, Gene.
Hi, Billy. hey, we should sing happy birthday to Billy.
Oh,
everybody at home, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Billy. Happy birthday to you. They say it's your birthday.
Da, da, da. I remember we're early on in my friendship with Eugene. It was 20 years ago, and he came to my 40th birthday party. Kind of a shy fellow, stood off against the tree for a while.
I did.
And you were just being subtle, I think. You didn't want to overwhelm the party with your personality right away. And so you brought me a very nice gift. You brought me some cards, some interesting cards. I think there was things like Betty Boop, or you brought me a comic book as well. There was a very cool store at that time in Duncan that had odds and ends, didn't it? Had comic books and curios. And of course, we didn't ask Gene to play because we were folking away there around the campfire. But eventually, you came over and shared some music with us, and that was brilliant. So thanks for at least 20 years of friendship, probably more.
That's right. You're looking pretty party festive there.
I had a hair transplant. I thought, I'm 60. Why wait? So I got this multicolored job. I think it should be good for a lot of occasions. Yeah. So what have you saved up for us this week? We're not sure if it's 5 or 6, week 5 or 6. What do you think?
I think it's at least 5.
We're going to check
6.
later. Might be 6, but it's
been
a great ride so far.
Yeah, I thought I'd do a song here. I had a request for The Thick of Things. Somebody said, we're in the thick of things. Why don't you play that tune, Eugene? Somebody texted me.
Perfect.
So I thought I'd start out today with The Thick of Things. Sitting in a rainforest, oh, day by day, watching people living all their lives away. A Saturday night movie, then a Sunday noon drive. Back again Monday with the lovers fight. We're in the thick of things. We're in the thick of things. As we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things. Can't decide on small or large, won't tone. We'll have to take it small, we're running low on funds. Rasputin Rufus had a few fights. Rasputin ran away, we don't know why. We're in the thick of things. Oh yeah, we're in the thick of things. As we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things. Come on. We're in the thick of things. All right. We're in the thick of things. As we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things. Have a few friends, they've got a place in the hills where they can go to get away from it all. Thinking of the future's the way they do, suddenly realizing after all, they're in the thick of things, all right. They're in the thick of things. As we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things. As we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things. We're in the thick of things, oh yeah. We're in the thick of talk, the thick of things. All right, as we get a little older, we bump shoulder to shoulder in the thick of things.
Whoa, you're in fine voice today, sir. Wow.
Thank you kindly, folks.
Bob
Yeah.
Nation sends 3 kisses. Carol Gordon's out there. And someone who, did we see this name before? Marianne Darrow. Hi, Eugene. Sounding great as usual. Do you know Marianne?
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Ah, perfect. Now, I was going to say you.
Oh,
with this
Marianne.
weird year, you also have a kind of a monumental birthday coming up. And are you disappointed that we can't throw a big party? I was hoping we get to throw you a big party this year.
Well, you can throw it if you want.
That's right, we could.
you can throw it if you want.
Bunch of mannequins.
Hopefully, I'll be there.
Bunch of mannequins sitting around the backyard.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
So I guess it's story time.
Story
Boy, I got
time.
some juicy stories for you tonight.
Good.
Well, I think what I'm going to do, I was thinking about this. I'm going to go back to the 60s when I was working with Ronnie Hawkins. And we were playing in London, Ontario at the time, at the Brass Rail. Actually, the Brass Rail was the first place in London. One of the first gigs I did with Ronnie was in London at the Brass Rail. I think we might have played there twice. But this one time that we were there, Ronnie, all night long, kept saying, and this was like on a Friday night, the place was jam-packed, and we're just having a great time. But Ronnie, for some reason or other, knew that there were 2 RCMP undercover officers there. And I don't know how he knew, but he knew. And he kept looking at them and saying things to them like, we're going to have, well, boys, we're going to have a pot party tonight after the gig. And he kept talking about smoking pot all night long, marijuana. And the thing was, Ronnie didn't even smoke marijuana then, hardly at all. But he kept saying it all night long. And he said, boys, he says, they're out there, and I know they're out there. And he said, I know who they are. So anyways, at the end of the evening, we finished the night and went back to the motel where we were staying. And the next morning, around 8 o'clock in the morning, it was around there were like 12 RCMP officers breaking down the doors to the motel. And I'm sleeping in bed, and all of a sudden my door is just, the chain, everything, just boom, they break down the door. I get, like, don't move, they said to me, and I got, like, I didn't stand up, but I'm sitting on the edge of the bed in my underwear, and they run in with the wrench and tools and everything, and they take apart my toilet and my sink and everything, and then they came over and grabbed my arm. They looked at my arms. They were looking for, I found out later, they were looking for needle tracks, and I was the only one in the band who they did that to. I found out later. Anyways, they left. They went over to Ronnie's room, and Ronnie had a road guy that was with him, and they had adjoining rooms. And I think Dougie Rhodes was his name. And anyways, they broke into Dougie's room thinking they were breaking into Ronnie's room. And Dougie apparently, you Ronnie Hawkins? No, he's in there. And he kept pointing. So they went into Ronnie's room, and Ronnie apparently was lying in bed. And they had the search warrants and everything to search our rooms. and Ronnie was lying in the bed apparently, and they came in and said, "You Ronnie Hawkins?" "Yeah, we're Ronnie. We got a search warrant here. We're searching for marijuana. We're looking at marijuana." And Ronnie told us, they looked at them, and he said, "Boys," he said, "I don't need to smoke no marijuana." He says, "I got enough pills in that suitcase over to keep London high for a whole year." And so they looked in the suitcase. Of course, it was all prescription, But anyways, after they left, I got myself dressed and everything. But what I realized was the guys that broke into my room had left the search warrant on my desk. So I took it over to Ronnie's room. I said, "Ron, look at it." I said, "These guys, they forgot one of their search warrants." And Ronnie goes, "Son, give that to me. I'll keep that for a souvenir." I'll keep that for a souvenir. I knew what he was talking about. About an hour and a half or so later, 2 hours later, this car pulls up. And two officers get out of the car, and they knock on Ronnie's door, and they said, we think we left a search warrant here, because when they go and do their reports, they have to hand in the search warrants. So Ronnie had to give up the search warrant to the two police officers that day, and I'll never forget that. But they tore my bedroom apart, but didn't do it to anybody else's. So that's my story about Ronnie back in working at the brass rail.
Today's day and age, Gene, you'd be suing them for racial profiling. Oh, my God. That's right. That's right. So your little brother says, hello from your little brother, Jeffrey. Sounds good, bro.
Hey.
And also, someone who has not commented yet, some young lady named Victoria Slager. Do you know?
Ooh, she found out how to do it.
She did. Hey, Eugene, you sound great as always. Happy upcoming anniversary. Ooh.
I know.
So that's what was the first month that you met?
We met on Victoria Day.
Ooh.
In Victoria at the Chateau Victoria with Victoria.
It was a for Victoria thing, right?
Yes.
Pretty magical.
I know.
Hi, Victoria. Yeah, glad you're listening. And that you've learned to comment. How, too. Yeah.
That's good, eh?
That's good.
Yeah.
One of you's got to be good on computer. Oh.
You got that right. So I hope the people from England are watching.
Oh, what were their names again?
Queen Elizabeth and...
Queen Elizabeth. I believe she's watching, yes. Hey, the Queen doesn't miss much.
And Prince Philip. What? Well, they might be watching. You never know.
Well, they're tuned into BC anyway because they want to know what Harry's up to. So they'll probably just slide on over here to... Oh, he did?
Yeah, he's gone. Down to LA. Well, that's good. Well, hey, Wayne Gretzky moved down there.
It was good enough for Wayne. It's good enough for Prince Harry. That's right.
Anyways, okay. So, any more comments?
Carol Gordon, hi. And nope, that's it so far.
That's it so far. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we're doing pretty good here. I've got another story to tell you. And this is the juiciest one of all.
All right.
So remember, this is parental guidance here. 14 plus. So I'm gonna skip up to I guess it's the 70s, maybe late 70s. I'm not sure of the time period, but it's a story that I told a friend of mine, Grant Slater. And the story goes from when I was 19 and then into the 70s is the ending of the story. So it goes like this. When I was 19 years old, I had a band called J. Smith and the Majestics, and We played around Toronto. Trocadero was our main place. Played at all the other places like all the other bands in Toronto did. And one night, on my way home, I was driving the band truck. Now it was empty. There were no equipment whatsoever in the truck. No B3 or guitars and amps and all that. And I got to, because I lived in the West End where I grew up, and I was on my way home, and I got to Superior Avenue and Lakeshore, and there's a light there. And then just not far from that light is another light, and I think it's called Ottawa or Quebec Avenue. I'm not sure. I can't remember the name of the street now. But anyways, and the Sagamore Hotel was right on the corner. So I get to the light at Superior, and it changes green. So I don't have to stop. I keep going. Now, there's a streetcar at the other light, and just as I get to the end of the streetcar, the light changes green. And the streetcar starts to move. And it gets halfway into the center of the intersection, and it slows down. And I'm past the back doors. Now I'm passing the front doors. When I get to the front doors, he's slowing down. He's in the middle of the intersection. And I went, oh my God. And I looked left, I looked right, there was nobody. And then I looked straight on, and there was this woman running to catch the streetcar, and she was dead center of the van as I'm passing it. My reflexes were I just swerved to the left with my van, and I knocked her over. And when I stopped, I knocked her over, and one of the back wheels had gone over her legs. And she was lying there, and somebody called an ambulance. Now, the streetcar, he just kept on going. Now, I didn't realize until a year later, that it was the streetcar conductor's fault that this accident happened, because he was not supposed to slow down in the middle of the intersection to pick somebody up. But she was running from the Sagamore Hotel, and she was drunk, and she got schmucked by me, but it was his fault that it happened. Anyways, she was taken to the hospital. She was fine. She had to stay overnight. She had bruises on her legs, which was very fortunate because she's just lucky I was able to think fast enough at the time. But it turned out to be one of my cousin's girlfriend's mother, which when I told him, well, I ran over your. Anyways, so a couple of weeks later, I got this letter in the mail saying I had to appear in court as a witness, because at that particular time, that year, they had just introduced the crosswalks. And it was a $50 fine if you didn't use them properly. Anyways, I had to go to court, and I went to court, and I had to tell them my story. And the woman herself, she had a lawyer, but she ended up being fined $50 for jaywalking. Oh. And I was paid $6 as a witness. And I started thinking, hey, maybe I can make a job out of this, Just sit around where the crosswalks were, and I could make $6. How many people, I could make a living. Anyways, so that basically is what happened, and she got fined $50. I got paid $6. Years later, working with a musician named Grant Slater, I told him this story one time, and this is when he was married to his first wife, and they used to come up to the farm all the time and bring their dogs, and I think they were living in Keswick, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where they were. Anyways, I told him this story, and a few weeks later, or no, I'm not sure, sometime after I told him the story that I just told you, he phoned me up and he said, Eugene, he says, I'm never going to disbelieve any story you'd ever tell me again. And I said, why? This is like 30 years later, like, some 20 or 30 years later. I'm not sure exactly. Grant will correct me. But anyways, him and his wife are in the park walking their dogs one day. And there was this drunk woman sitting on the bench. And she started saying how much she liked the dogs. And she started talking to Grant and his wife. And she asked him what he did for a living. He says, oh, I'm a musician. And she says, you're a musician? She said, I know a musician. His name's Jay Smith, which was my name back then. She said, and he ran over me with his truck. This was the lady, 25 years later, this is the same woman. And Grant bumps into her and she tells him how I had run over her with my truck when I was a teenager. So that's my story. When I was a teenager at 19.
That is a beauty. Oh. How did you grew up outside the city proper, didn't you?
Well, I grew up in New Toronto, which was the West End.
Right.
There was Mimico, New Toronto, Humber, and then Long Branch, and then you get into Port Credit, and so I grew up in the West End. It was different, way different than being in Scarborough. Scarborough was like, oh my God, Scarborough. But so that's where I grew up. Yeah.
Did you sneak out and drive early, like before you were 16?
No, I didn't.
Oh?
No, I didn't do that. We didn't have did we have a car then? Yeah, we had a car. No, I didn't sneak out and drive other vehicle. No, I didn't do that.
Now television, you wouldn't have had, or not syndicated TV, certainly. When
Two
you grew
stations.
Up. 2 stations, wow.
Well, maybe 3. There were 2 stations. There was CBC and there was Wuffle.
Wuffle?
No, Buffalo station.
Oh, right, of course. A lot of signals coming across the border.
Yeah, we were getting... Yeah, I think so, yeah. WBEN TV, Buffalo. Yeah.
You mentioned at our first night the YMCA dances, but did you listen to a lot of radio more so than you would have been playing the 78s or
well,
LPs?
yeah, mostly I was listening to my dad's collection of albums. He was into Dixieland.
Nice.
And then I remember my first album that I ever got. I'll call it rock and roll, but it was Joey D and the Starlighters at the Peppermint Lounge. And my aunt gave it to me, the 33, as a present for Christmas.
Huh.
And I played that over and over and over and over and over again. But then we used to go down to Buffalo, to Buckley's, and get our 45s there and our 33s. So we were getting all the music that we couldn't buy in Toronto. We were getting it in Buffalo. And, of course, we'd wear old clothes and then come back with new clothes and leave the old clothes in the garbage cans.
Shopping across the border. Buckley's was a department store?
Yeah, it was a department store. And you used to be able to go in, and if you wanted to listen to a Ray Charles, you wanted to buy a Ray Charles album, you were allowed to go and listen to. You had a booth that you could go into, and you could put the album on and listen to some of it and decide whether you wanted to buy it or not.
Nice.
Yeah.
Of course, stores like Woolworths in Canada had a record department for quite a few years, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some of the early department stores. But not, as you say, nothing like the selection that you can get in the States.
No. Well, up in Toronto, they weren't playing the music the young teenagers wanted to play, or musicians, we were listening on the radio. They weren't playing. Well, they started to, but then it took a while. It took a while before they started playing the music we liked.
You might have been.
And then the Beatles came in and went away again. What's that?
Well, you were the same, similar to. I was watching a documentary of Mr. Dylan, and he was saying that. A lot of the people were still listening to things like "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?" There was this whole thing about happy music because they're trying to recover from the Second World War and the Cold War, So the music was pretty light and fatuous, a little silly. So you had to dig a little deeper for the real stuff, didn't you?
Well, yeah, the Purple People Eater and all that stuff.
You could never play that too many times.
But
right.
but I have to say, back then, that's when Bobby Cartola became really hit the scene as a teenage idol, and Paul Anka was another one.
Right.
And Rennie Simard in Quebec, whatever happened to Rennie Simard?
Whatever happened, yeah.
So like those were the teenage idols back then for a lot of the kids. And in the States, they were showing us, bringing up Fabian and Bobby Rydell and Bobby Vinton, Bobby V, Bobby. There were lots of Bobbies.
And your favorite Bobby Bland, when did you discover him? How old were you?
I was, when I first got into Jay Smith and the Majestics.
Right.
Some of the guitar player and the bass player, they were into Bobby Bland, and they introduced me to him then.
And that was more soul singing style, would you say?
Well, he was like, he had a huge orchestra, 16 or whatever piece orchestra, but it was, I would call it sophisticated blues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Uptown blues.
Uptown blues.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was the one that kind of made Stormy Monday really famous.
Right.
I mean, there's others too, but that was one of the tunes that everybody in Toronto bands would play that song, but they would do the Bobby Bland version.
It's a bit odd to think of blues with a suit and a full orchestra, but it did work for the time period, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean James Brown had a huge orchestra, and Ray Charles. They all they had big orchestras, and to go along with their music, and it worked for them. It really did. Yeah. I like your hair, Billy.
Isn't that great? I did get a nice comment from somebody about love the wig. I think it was Carol Gordon. Well, Gene, you gotta get up early in the morning when you're working with a good-looking fellow like you. So, I gotta put on the special clothes, the hair,
I'd just like to thank everybody out there for tuning in to these shows that we've been doing. It's I hope it's been helping out, and it's been helping us out. That's for sure. It gets me out of the house once a week, and. So what I'll do is I'll just end off with something that I didn't think I was going to do, but I'll do it anyways. You got me peeping, you got me hiding, you got me peep hide, anywhere you want me to go. Yeah, yeah. You got me doing what you want, man, baby, what you want me to do. I'm going in, I'm going out. I'm going in, out, anywhere you want me to go. Yeah, yeah. You got me doing what you want, man, baby, what you want me to do. I'm going up, I'm going down, I'm going up, down, anywhere you want me to go. Oh yeah, yeah. You got me doing what you want, man, baby, what you want me to do. Oh yeah. All right. Come on now. You got me doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to do. You got me peeping, got me hiding, got me peep hide, any way you want me to go. Whoa, whoa, yeah. You got me doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to, doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to, doing what you want me, baby, what you want me. Ooh, you got me peeping and hiding, slipping and sliding, oh, going up and down, oh, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it all for you now. I'm doing it all for you now. And it's a little peeping and hiding. You got me peeping and hiding, slipping, sliding, peeping, hiding, going in and out, up and down, and round and bound. You got me doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to, doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to, doing what you want me, baby, what you want me to do.
Whoa.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great work, Gene. Thanks very much. Couple more comments for you. Now, Victoria Slager, whom you know well, says, you are a vintage idol, Gene. Which is a good, I think that's a living idol.
Yeah, I hope it is.
Like classic vintage clothing, you know. There you go.
Vintage clothing, vintage idol.
Vintage. Mm-hmm. Well, you're like good Scotch.
You might find me in, what do you call it? What's the big store with all the clothing?
Yeah, we have the Army Navy. No, the, they did. Oh, dear. Oh. You're thinking of the Goodwill in Victoria.
The Goodwill.
No,
the other one.
I'm sure that wasn't quite what she meant.
No, the other one.
Oh, the other one.
What? No, the other one.
Eclectic Avenue. The big one in Victoria.
The clothing store. The big clothing store where you buy cheap stuff. No.
Value
Village. There we go.
Victoria didn't mean that. Sorry, Victoria. I totally railroaded
You'll find
that.
me in Value Village, in the vintage section.
She meant something quite different.
I know
sure.
she did.
Yes,
I know.
Sorry, my fault. Carol Gordon says, thank you for making isolation enjoyable. Bill and Pat, loving your music, loving your stories.
Thank you.
And Joe Gancher. Now, wait, you know Joe Gancher. Kate, Minerva, and Charlie tuning in late from London, Canada. Hello, Jeff.
Oh, yes, Charlie.
Long time to hear. Maybe 55 years, 56 since he's heard you, he says. Well, Joe, you can go back in the Duncan Showroom catalog and look at all 5 shows, as well as Eugene's musical shows, many of them over the years cataloged with the showroom. So there's some great music there.
Oh, Billy.
Both solo. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'd just like to thank everybody for the donations also.
Oh, right. We did forget to say that. There was a flash for the tip jar there, and we do appreciate that if you give tips or donations. It keeps the showroom open, and half goes to Eugene as well. So it keeps him in butter tarts for sure. He's got a pretty svelte figure, so he can afford the odd butter tart. Yes, thank you very much for contributing, and thank you, Gene. Wonderful show so far, and we hope you'll come back again next week.
The Gene and Billy Show.
Gene and Billy Show. My hair might have, settled down by that point.
I'm going to have to do something next week.
You're going to have to do something crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks to Ted and the board.
Do something different with it. I don't.
You're pretty. It's looking pretty stylish now. The headband, though.
Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night. See you again.
I say, freight train, going so fast. Freight train.